Welcome to Healing Beyond the Trauma. My name is Megan Alves. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this podcast, I want to break the stigma around mental health and have real, unfiltered conversations about healing. Some stories are going to be raw, even triggering at times, but they're real and they're honest because healing starts with honesty. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying it all, you're not. Here, you're going to gain validation, practical tools, and a new perspective to move forward. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. So let's dive in. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of, breaking through our struggles, through the traumas. I'm Megan Alves with Mental Summit, and I'm going to say this every freaking episode because I feel so immensely honored that I have another amazing guest with me to be able to share his struggles and how he overcomes and how he identified with mental health. But even more important than that is what he is doing in our community with his amazing talents and the purpose that he has. Juan Muno, nope, I'm gonna mess it.
We practiced.
We practice it. I could practice all day long.
Muñiz.
Munoz. Muniz.
Yes.
Juan Muniz. And he is a local artist out here really as well trying to break mental health stigmas. He is an author, he is a father, and I met you during a suicide prevention event. We
Yeah.
sat next to each other and got to do some role play and I got to learn a little bit about you, and I've just been a huge fan ever since. I mean,
Thank
you
you.
pull on my heartstrings with mental health and just the passion that you have. Every single time I get to run into you in this community, it's just an honor to have you here today. Thank
No,
you so much for joining us. Please
like I
give
said,
us a
yeah, I'm
little
just
bit of
thank
an
you.
idea.
Honestly, I'm thankful for this. I mean, I'm thankful for this conversation. I'm thankful for what you're doing. Honestly, what you're trying to bring together with this podcast. I believe it's very, very important and something that helps break the stigma and the negative conversations between mental health. And we met in that class for a reason. And honestly, like I was trying to better myself to do, to learn and educate myself to become better at what I do. That's why I joined NAMI. And that's why, luckily, like because they provide classes and like be able to get certified in certain things to be able to help people. And I was already speaking about my mental health and my art, but I had so many people reach out on social media that at one point I felt I'm not the right person. They should be talking to somebody that's a professional, or somebody that's trained a counselor. And then I thought to myself, what's the only thing that's stopping me from becoming that? Well, training. And I realized that NAMI provides a lot of courses and classes, and that's why I kind of met with NAMI. And it was a while back ago. I was even on the board of directors for a while, and it was so I could be able to help people because there's a lot of I've been on the other side of that coin dealing with depression and dealing with negative and suicidal thoughts that when I was going through that I really wanted every excuse not to get help. And when it seemed like it was difficult or I couldn't find the number, there was nobody to talk to, I was like, see, I'm not meant to get help. So I didn't want others to feel that way. And I wanted, when people reached out to me or wanted to talk to me, that I would have something productive and actually helpful. Because if you're not careful, you could do a lot of damage while you talk to somebody that just struggling or like on the edge of it. And I wanted to at least have the proper training because there's many opportunities that come around, and that's why I took that course. And I just knew that going there, I was like, it was kind of crazy because like at first I think I was like the only guy in the class, and like I was just like wanted to be there to learn and just to try to help. I've lost many people in my life to suicide, and you know, I every time that it happens, whether I knew the person or whether it's a celebrity, I almost it's almost like a personal blow to me because I felt like, man, like somebody could have been there. I wish I could have been there, and it was like, and I know it's impossible to reach out to the whole world, but I at least want to be able to help when I'm needed if the opportunity arrives. So I'm just thankful that we have a platform like this with the podcast to just be able to talk about it and, not tiptoe around it and actually be real with it without the stigma and without the pressures of, like professional therapy or stuff like that, because a lot of times a lot of people do feel a little bit like scared from going to counseling therapist. So something like this, I believe, opens the doors to just like start the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, and you hit on so many beautiful points that I want to go back on is that, you jumped into that class because you created a safe space for people to really realize that it's okay to not be okay and that we can start talking about this open because here's Juan, an artist, somebody, I mean, at that time, I want to say, if I can remember correctly, you were doing a lot of the art for VGK, right?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like the story. I mean, my story. I've seen it many times, and I've told it many times in different interviews and podcasts. It was like, but like an entire life for all of us, there's different chapters, and like this is the last 5 6 years have been just insane in my life. Like if it was a movie, that was the section of my life would it be like put in the movie because it's so surreal, and it went from, and it all has to do with my mental health actually. So I was already doing, I was kind of to tell you a little bit of the story of how it kind of happened. And I was already working on my art, and I was already creating art and doing like Fresh Fridays and the little festivals around town. And all the illustrations that I did were very cartoony, graffiti, illustrative, but it was very emo, very depressed. That's how I kind of like just did my art. I didn't actually realize that that I was suffering with depression or anxiety or anything like that until I was an adult. But, I was growing up, and I felt like I was always the black sheep of the family. I always felt a little bit different, but I never understood why. And then there was this trauma. And as you said, like we're getting real with this. What
Yeah.
ended up happening is my first trauma that I remember started when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And it was, for some reason, I'm able to remember very, very much like my younger years. And what ended up happening is that my mom was 9 months pregnant with my little brother. And we were living in Mexico, and I wanted her to play with me because none of my siblings would play with me. I have one older brother, two older sisters, and nobody wanted to play with me. And I remember I wanted my mom to play with me, and she wouldn't. And I remember I got mad, and she was sitting on a couch, like in a little love seat, and I just ran and jumped on her stomach. And she was 9 months pregnant. So I don't know exactly what happened after that, but I do know like a day or two later, she went to the hospital and came back. She was about to give birth. So she came back, and this is Mexico. So probably like late 80s, early 90s. And she came home with a mason jar. And I asked, I'm like, what's that in the mason jar? And she said, that's your little brother. And they were like, he was a stillbirth. And I'm like, what happened? And she started trying to explain to me, sometimes, God has a plan, sometimes isn't that. And as a little kid, I'm trying to understand, but I'm like kind of not getting it.
Yeah.
But then the last sentence, the last thing she said to me, she kind of just looked at me and said, well, you jumped on me and you killed your little brother. And she told me that when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And from then on, it was just like, I felt like my family treated me as I killed my little brother. I was like, nobody talked to me, nobody spent time with me. Everything was just, it was very toxic, it was very negative. And I just felt like, and if I turned to my siblings, usually somebody would try to comfort a little kid by like, hey, I think I killed my brother, my mom. And, they would be like, no, it's okay. No, of course not. My family would kind of just look at me like, not say anything.
Oh.
And it made me feel like, okay, so I did. So I always felt like I was the black sheep because of that. And I didn't realize at the time, but I internalized all of my feelings and my emotions because every time I talk to them, a lot of kids feel like they bother their parents. A lot of people don't talk to others because unfortunately, I later found out in life that my dad recently passed away, and we were talking about this, and he was apologizing for everything that happened, and he kind of just admitted that everything that I feared, everything that I believed, all that trauma, all the gaslighting was actually real. It was actually on purpose, and they were doing it, and they knew that they were doing it. So that when I learned that now, I mean, like it's more like not like a huge weight off my shoulders because at this point I was already kind of being more comfortable myself and all this stuff as an adult. But at the time, I didn't realize that. So that ended up happening. I started growing up. I was always drawing. I was always just illustrating, and I ended up getting married. And I, it's like everything happens for a reason. I got two beautiful daughters out of it, but during the marriage, it was very traumatic, and it was very, like, there was a lot of stuff that I was realizing that I didn't. I didn't know I had, which was that I was on the spectrum or that I have severe depression and like clinical depression and anxiety. I didn't know that at the time, and it
And
was a real.
how old were you at this point?
At this point, I was probably like 23, and when the first
Oh,
time I got married really young, and
yeah.
what ended up happening was after a while, it was like, 'cause there was a lot of fighting. It was just a lot of like, I have never been like freaking out this much in my life. Like, I didn't like who I was becoming. And then my ex-wife, we had our first daughter, and everything was fine. And that daughter gave me the reason to live.
That
Like as
purpose.
cheesy as it was like before that, even being married, I was like, look, like if I die, I don't have anybody responsible for. Like I'm fine. Like I can't. But the moment that she was born, I was so scared. But for some reason, it was like when I held her in my arms, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna have a reason, it's gonna be for her. So I kept going for her, and then my ex-wife ended up getting pregnant again a couple of years afterwards, and then she ended up miscarrying. She miscarried about 2 or 3 times,
Oh man.
and then the fourth time, like it was actually really bad. Like she started hemorrhaging. It was twins. They told us like, okay, that it might not be that she miscarried, but you still have to come in. We went in and we saw the heartbeats of the both twins. Next day we went in for another checkup. Both heartbeats were gone.
Mm,
So my like thing automatically, even though we didn't have a good relationship, was take care of her, make sure she's okay, because the
that is
amount of like
united.
trauma and stress, like a lot of women do blame themselves for this. A lot of people like, and I just wanted to be there for her. I didn't realize that by doing that, I basically cauterized my own feelings and emotions because it was my child too. But I didn't think about that because I was focused on her. So then you fast forward to like another like year or so, I end up like this lady messages me because I did these posters for this mystery box thing, and I this mystery box company reached out and like, can you do a Batman like poster thing? And I'm like, all right. I did a little kid dressed as Batman playing with his toy blocks and the little bat car in his toy cave. And about a year after like the miscarriage, this lady hits me up. She was like, hey, somebody got me this poster of yours. I was looking for you forever because I ended up miscarrying my son. We didn't know that there was anything wrong, and when we went to go to the hospital when I was having contractions, we got there and it was a stillbirth. His name was going to be Bruce, and we decorated his room in all like Batman stuff. I would
Oh.
never get to see my child play with the toys that I got him,
Mm.
but when I got your poster, I felt like I was seeing him. And so she kept the poster, and she was like, "Thank you for drawing my son."
Oh.
And I started talking to her, and I was like, I understand. I'm so sorry that you're going through it. And I kind of brought up, was like, my wife had a miscarriage too. And then, my little brother, and then I mentioned that my little brother was a miscarriage. The twins were a miscarriage. And all of a sudden it hit inside of me. Like something
Oh.
just snapped. And I'm like, I haven't been able to feel anything like for a long time. Like even after we had our second daughter, it was a high risk pregnancy, and she came out fine. Everything's perfect. She's 11 years old now.
Yeah.
But after she was born, like it didn't feel like the first time, and I felt so bad about this because when I had my first daughter, I was like so excited, so happy, so scared, so nervous, everything. With this one, it was like my brain is telling you you're happy, but I don't feel anything. And I
Yeah.
was like, and I realized I was like, I numbed it. Like I didn't have patience for the kid. It's not like I got mad at her or anything or yell at her. It was just like, I would freak out. I'd go in the other room and cry because like this child is crying and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And all these things started getting together, and then I started doing the research. I'm like, I think there's something more to me. And I started realizing that I needed to get help. And that's when I started reaching out to therapists and counselors. And I was basically told, I was like, yeah, you're clinically depressed and you have this severe anxiety. And that was like, after that I kind of like, okay, so what do I do with this? I still went through a
Yeah.
lot more
Thanks
trouble,
for
and
the
it was,
information, but what do I
yeah.
do?
And at that point, like me and my ex were at this point we were separated. She moved to like out of state to Colorado. I went out there just to be close to the kids, and it was super depressing time. And I was like, so I'm sitting there one time, and I'm like, I have no job. I have no idea what to do. I'm in Colorado. I've been called so many racist names just walking around there. I'm like at my lowest point, and I remember just being there, and I grabbed my gun, and I put to my head, and I pulled the trigger, and the bullet jammed. And when it popped out and it hit the floor, I heard ding. I started crying. And but the thing about me is that I could be in the worst case scenario, but for some reason, sometimes an image will come into my head, and I'm like, you have to draw it because it's an itch that you have to scratch. So I'm in the middle of this, and I get this idea for a drawing, and I grabbed my iPad and I drew it and I posted it online, and the response was like bigger than normal. And then I another idea came up, and it was just me venting, and I drew this entire thing of just, and it was the first book called "I'm Not Okay Today." And I actually, it was a bunch of illustrations of things that I like. It wasn't pro or like pro or against like suicide right there, like that. It was just that moment that we all feel at that time. Like, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm upset. It's like it. And a lot of times when I felt like that, a lot of people would tell me just relax or calm down, blah, 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 or like don't feel that way. And it was telling me to again suppress the feelings, suppress the feelings. So when I did that, I started just drawing, and somebody posted, it was like, you should put these in the book. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm gonna do. And this might be a little dark, but this is literally what I did. I was thinking, because I did a lot of stuff for animation and marketing and stuff like that. I have a marketing mind. As dark as it can get, I have one. So I was thinking, I was like, okay, I don't want to the bullet jam, but I don't think I could provide anything good for this world anymore besides maybe this book. So I'm gonna do this book. I'm gonna launch a Kickstarter, and I'm in the moment that I press launch, I'm gonna give all the codes to my ex-wife, and then I'm gonna pull the trigger. Because if for some reason this story gets picked up by the news, it would talk about this artist that was struggling with mental health, struggling with depression. The last act that he did was to create a Kickstarter, and hopefully that helps other people. And I know that if that hits the news, at least my kids will be taken care of with the Kickstarter. That was my idea.
Yeah.
And like,
And
I
in
did
that
it.
moment,
Yeah.
probably felt really, really logical.
Because I tell people, it's like, at least for me, a lot of times when I was at my most low and the most suicidal points, it wasn't like I was manic and yelling and screaming. It's the moments when I get really quiet and calm. And the moments you like, a lot of people have told me like suicide seems like it's such a like coward's way out. I was like, in reality, at least for myself, I could tell you that it was the moment that I really was about to do it. It wasn't because of me. I thought that I was doing it because of everybody else, to better, like, they're going to suffer at first, but in the long while they're going to be better off without me. That's what my brain was tricking me to believe.
Yeah.
So
And I love
during
how you said that. I want to really pause there for a minute because I think that that is something that oftentimes holds the stigma, right? Like and you and I have had these conversations. People will say suicide is the most selfish act, or why are we glamorizing suicide by talking about it? Or now we've switched the verbiage, right? It's no longer committed suicide, it's completed suicide because it's not an act of against the law. It
yeah,
in that moment, and you said it, that was the thoughts at that time
yeah,
telling me that the logical thing was, in order for everybody else to have a better life, was to get me out of the equation.
yeah,
And one, that is something, I mean, I think that that is going to be the common denominator in almost every conversation from every suicide survivor that I've talked to. And you and I both know we've heard suicide survivor stories, thankfully, so many times. And that's often the case.
yeah,
Or the moment that they decide to make that choice, it's an instant regret, right? But with clinical depression, just so the audience understands, those thoughts are logic to that person at that
yeah.
time, and that was the most logical thing.
Even thinking about it now, knowing that it was my mind tricking me, knowing that it was like all this trauma, all these things that were making me feel that way, like, and I wouldn't want to, like, I can't even believe that I was in that position. I still see it, and I'm like, that's still a logical conversation. That is the most logical. Like, I could sit there with that version of me, and I could be like, I get it, I completely understand it. But that's the beauty of it, because if I could do that with myself, that with somebody who's at that same exact point, that they don't want to hear get over it, it's going to be fine. It's
Yeah,
telling them
right.
it's okay. You're feeling that way, okay,
It's okay.
I get
Yeah.
it.
And then what, Juan? Like
Yeah,
now, so you're at this point, right? And let's just dive into that for a
yeah,
second. As when you talk to someone, and I mean, I'll rewind back to what you said, is that sometimes reaching out to therapy is not only a hard thing for people to do. It's often scary, and sometimes they've done it and it didn't turn out well, right?
Yeah,
Because what is the common theme that tends to happen if you tell a therapist, I'm having suicidal thoughts?
yeah.
It's
You're
typically the fear.
yeah. It's a punishment.
Yeah.
It's that fear of, like, even as a child, when your parents tell you, I don't care if you mess up, if you don't tell me, if you lie to me, it's going to be worse. But to the child, they're still scared of telling them. And all of a sudden, if they start opening up and telling them, and unfortunately, a lot of these therapists and counselors that, kind of use what they've learned as like a blueprint to work with everybody. And it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
because every single person is different. Just with autism, every single person is different. So for myself, the first thing that I do, because I get them almost two to three times a week, where random people, or people that I've met, or people that I've met on, at events, they feel like they could open up to me and talk to me. And a lot of times, it's like, I just want to be the medium. So it's like, okay, you come to me, I don't want to be the first, like, roadblock to them. I want to be the one that, like, facilitates is like, and get them to understand, like, I know that you don't really want to talk to somebody, but allowing them a safe space where they could feel that they can. Because, and the way that I do that my best is when people are calling me, or they're messaging me, or whatever, and they're just like, I hate the world, everybody, like, just completely
Mm.
everything.
On
I
the, yeah,
understand.
the
I
very
let them vent.
dark.
I let them do it. I let them say it, because if they could tell me the most messed up, darkest thing that they could think of, but once they get it off their chest,
Get it out.
like,
Shake it
all the
off.
time, it's like, I have no right to tell you you shouldn't feel that way. It's
Mhm.
like, our feelings, like I quote and I live by Mr. Rogers' teachings, and one of his favorite sayings was, anything in the world that is mentionable is manageable. So if what I'm trying to do with the books, with the art, with everything, is just start that conversation, because there is a mountain to climb when it comes to healing and going in the path of, promoting positive mental health for yourself, for others. And it's a huge mountain. But
Huge.
if you the first step, nobody is allowing it to facilitate it for other people, it's going to be really, really hard. And that first
Yes.
step is that first one that just, it gets to me every time, because a lot of people don't want to open up, and I understand, rightfully so. But that's why, when I do the illustration, I do the books, and they're just, when somebody picks it up and, like, reads it or looks at the drawing, and they're like, they don't have to say anything. They take that breath, they kind of just looked at me, and they're just like, and they just kind of show me, and I'm like, yeah.
Hmm.
Because if I could help people, like, at least start speaking about it, even without using their words. And I
Yeah.
get that a lot. A lot of parents are like, our child wouldn't, they can't communicate with us. They can't tell us how they feel. But they show us your illustrations and going like, I feel like this.
Mm.
And to me, I'm just like, it means the world to me to be able to facilitate that conversation, and not only do it for us, but I want to focus on children, and I want to focus on starting them young, because at that amazing age between, like, 6 and 8, where they're starting to develop these things, that's at the moment that we need to be there more, like, most for them. And to me, if we could find, like, help with that foundation of support and love,
Yeah.
then it allows to open up the doors for them to do it for others, and just the world to become a better place. But I do feel that we have to start from the very beginning. We can't just put a band-aid on the problem, because as adults, we
Right.
struggle with so much, and, like, everything we do, for the most part, unless we do a complete rehaul, we're just slapping a band-aid on a huge problem, and it's not
Yeah.
going to be able to fix it.
Yeah, and to capitalize on that and to also go back to what you said is that you were taught at a very young age how important it was to numb those emotions in order to keep going.
Yeah.
You were the black sheep. There was even more going on than you even realize as far as how you were being made to
As
feel
an
during
adult,
that
yeah, as an
time.
adult, also, with, like, I found out 2.5 years ago, I was on the spectrum, and the whole, like, just masking thing that we do, it's like, it wasn't, the things that I've learned to do, like, nowadays, I do get overstimulated. There's a lot of things that I learn about myself, and I still struggle with them my entire life, but I learn how to cover it up and mask it to, quote unquote, be normal. But it's draining, it's exhausting, because at the end of the day, like, I collapse, like, I am
Yeah.
spending all this time, and I'm tired, because I'm putting up this front for the entire world, and after a while, I'm just like, I just want to be me. and I just want to be able to be my true self without any fear. And unfortunately, when I found out that I was on the spectrum, and I started putting those healthy boundaries and everything that I'm studying about everything, reading up on everything, like, talk to your family, put healthy boundaries, put responsibilities, make yourself a plan, all these amazing things. And when I start putting it into effect, the weirdest thing happened. And I was more vocal about mental health on social media and all that stuff. Everybody that supported me, all these friends, all these people that are around me disappeared. I was struggling through one of my biggest depressions a few years back, and I was public about it on social media because I was opening up for those who feel like they can't open up, and because of the people know who I am, because people see my work, I was literally like thousands of people deleted me because I was being honest and I cried on camera and like all the things that everybody says they support off my page.
Yeah.
I was literally getting deleted for it, and I didn't care. I kept going because I started every now and then would get a message or like, thank you for going 110% because there's people that can't even go 2%. And I was like, and that helps them to maybe try to go to 3%. And getting messages from grown men from across the country, from across the world, opening up to a stranger because they see how much I open up, like it doesn't affect me what people say or people may think. They're like, oh, he's sharing too much, he isn't that. I'm like, I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for the one that needs it.
The one that needs
Doing
it.
it for the one
Yeah.
that needs to hear that message. Like I wear this sweatshirt a lot. I have like 5 different colors of the sweatshirt. And somebody wrote me on social media because on the back it says to the person standing behind me, thank you for this. I was like, somebody wrote me on social media and just went on a rant yelling at me saying, well, what if a pedophile or a rapist is standing behind you? Da, 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 da. And I was just like, at the end of and he was just trying to pick a fight. He was just trying to be combative. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I do this for the person that needs to hear that message. I'm
Right.
like, because to that person, it matters. To that, it's like to that person, it means the world. And I've walked around with the sweatshirt, and people will see it, and strangers will stop me and be like,
Mhm.
"Thank you," or "I like your sweatshirt." And
Yeah.
it's something so simple in a world that's just so angry and scary. And I believe that the people that have struggled with the trauma the most, the people that have struggled with all these things, have some of the biggest heart and are the most empathetic. Because I would say this a lot, and I thought I was kind of unique in that saying it, but I'm not, and I'm glad I'm not. But it was in the sense it was like I just want to be able to help, and I want to be able to be a good neighbor. I want to be able to, in this angry world, to just be a light because there's so much negativity. Not because I'm like, oh, I want to be known as I'm good. No, it's because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Because
And for
it's less,
you,
yeah, it's just,
it
just
doesn't
better.
come easy. It doesn't come easy for you. But
Mm.
over time, something that I've I think is so validly important that I don't want to put your story into my own words, but what I hear so much about what you're saying when that mountain gets really high is that you've constantly found purpose
Yeah.
or why. And that is so important when you're in the dark of the dark. And more times than not, when people are reaching out to us angry about mental health or angry about emotions, it's because this stuff is scary and we get it.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to let you be angry about it. And I'm going to continue to show up in this capacity and hope that as my consistent show up is here,
Yeah.
that you can hear something that resonates at when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
But if you need to sit in that anger, it's super unfortunate because there really truly are people out here that want to hear your story, that want to validate how you're feeling and then help you get to a better place. Like that's the beautiful part
Yeah.
is
And
that
it's,
as
it's
soon
such
as
an
you share
amazing
it,
thing.
it helps us to create
Yeah.
change, right?
You said anything that's mentionable is manageable. And it's like, with the story, the way that that has happened to me, it was like, I tried to commit suicide. I didn't, like, the bullet jammed. I was going to do the Kickstarter. I came back to Vegas, brought my youngest back with me because my ex was going to come back to Vegas, not with me, but she was going to come back to Vegas. And when I came back, that's when I was like about to finish the book and about to launch the Kickstarter. Nobody knew what I was going to do. And the day before I launched the Kickstarter, it just happened that when I was in Vegas, the Golden Knights, it was the first year that they were here. They were making it to the playoffs. And my friend wrote me a message. He was like, hey, we're coming to Vegas. They were playing the Kings. And they were like, we're coming to Vegas to take out the trash. And I just did a cute little drawing of this little character throwing away the Kings logo in the trash. And it got reposted a lot. And every time we had a game, I'm still working on the book. I'm doing everything, but for some reason I like drawing. So we had a game. I do another drawing, posted online, and then they started just going viral. So eventually, the day before, like Fox Five did a story on me because of those drawings during the playoffs, and the day I was going to launch the Kickstarter, like Fox Five launched the story. Vegas Knights contacted me the day that I was supposed to pull the trigger, so I could go in for a meeting, so I could talk to them about doing stuff for them. And that was literally like I that moment did change my life, and then everything started changing after that. But even fast forwarding after that, like the nights it didn't end well. I got like screwed over by some rich guys on television. They took a lot of money from me, like almost
Oh,
got sued by an. It was crazy. So again, another thing of depression. So I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? Like now I finally have a house that I'm renting. But I don't see my kids because I'm constantly working, and it was a lot again. And
yeah.
this time around, it was like uh, I stopped doing the hockey stuff. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I was like, you know what? I'm finally gonna do this Kickstarter, and it was over a year afterwards. And I was like, I'm gonna send this Kickstarter, and I printed the book. I did the Kickstarter. I didn't pull the trigger, and all of a sudden, when I go to my first event, I have the book there, and this guy that's been following me for a long time, he comes around. And he's like, "Hey, man, I'd love to talk to you about your other stuff." Long story short, he became my investor, and we launched my brand, which was Ninobuni. So we're doing great. We launch it, COVID hits. So it's like it's a thing after another. So
Yeah.
but right when COVID hit, and like around that time, I was actually like I decided, you know what, I'm gonna give this one last shot, and I'm gonna really just give it all I got, because now I don't have any excuses. I have an investor that came in. Now we're gonna do this right. Um, I have a little bit of money aside. I ended up getting at the time. 'Cause at the time I was almost 300 pounds. I ended up getting gastric sleeve. And because I'm like, if I'm gonna rehold my life, I want to be mentally healthy. I want to be physically healthy, and those two things come together hand in hand. And I didn't want to believe that for the longest time, no matter how many times people told me, mental health and physical health go hand in hand. But I
Absolutely.
needed a
Scream it
boost.
on top of that mountain, right?
So it's like I needed that boost because I know myself. I'm like, I know and I've done the research, so I ended up getting gastric sleeve. And yeah, I stuck to it. I lost 100 pounds like in less than a year in a healthy way, and
Yeah.
that helped me feel better about myself physically. And then I started dressing, having fun with my clothes, and but at the same time, I was like, okay, so I have this business. What am I gonna do? All right, what do I see that like it's a pattern with like business people? Because I was reading entrepreneur books and all that stuff, and I realized
Yeah.
that about 99% of these entrepreneurs that I admired, all of them meditated. So then I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm gonna try that. I don't know how to do it, but I'm gonna try that. Downloaded the Calm app, and I just started doing 10 minutes a day, every day, 10 minutes a day, every day. And it was like, and it's something that I had to learn that it's not something you're never gonna perfect, because it's not a thing about being perfect with meditation.
Good.
It's
Yeah.
being in the
Say that
moment.
louder.
And
You
it's like,
can't perfect it.
it,
You're not going to be
yeah,
perfect at it. Starting somewhere is the
yeah.
important part, especially with meditation.
Yeah, it's being in the moment, being in your breathing, and there's a lot of things that help you. So that was the snowball that started everything with my road on healing, because I'm like, look, this is, and then right when that happened, there was the riots, there was all these things, the world was really ugly, and I turned everything off. And I remember, like, I sat down with my kids to watch shows like Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, because that's what made me happy. And then I realized, I was like, we need that nowadays, not just kindness, but radical kindness. That
Mhm.
cheesiness, over the top thing. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm just gonna go with the most that I can, with just loving my neighbor and just being everything like that. The cartoon version that I always wanted to be of myself, and just promote it with love and this and that. And I don't care what people say. It was like, oh, he was a graffiti artist. He was this. He was that. Oh, he was an a hole. He was. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I was all of those things, but right now at this moment, I'm gonna change my life for the better, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna be this generation, my version of Mr. Rogers.
That's
That
amazing.
was my goal. And I went on that direction, and everything was going fine. And that's when I found out that I was on the spectrum, and I had a group of people around me that I've known for a long time, and they were supporting me and helping me, at least so I thought, especially with the brand and trying to launch all these things. But at the same time, when I started putting those barriers, those healthy boundaries and all these things, those people that supported me were no longer there. Eventually, they slowly started drifting away, started ghosting me, because I had to learn that a lot of times people don't want to deal with what you're dealing with, because it puts a mirror in their face of what they're dealing with, what they're not dealing with, and they don't want to talk about. So when you're that vulnerable in front of them, there's a lot of times where they're like, it's not because technically because of you, it's because of them. It's
Right.
because they can't, they're not where you're at, where they want to face, problems. So I
Yeah,
just,
that's
it became
so
a,
important
yeah,
to notice that although you can be struggling and putting boundaries in, when we lose people, which is a grief in and of itself, it sounds
yeah,
like these, a lot of those people were people that you trusted and you would hope
mhm,
to continue to help you through. But being able to have that narrative and understanding that some people come into our lives at certain times and do need to leave because
yeah,
they're not able to comprehend and they're not quite ready to be at the level that you're at.
yeah. And like I always say, there's a quote that I love that's, everybody comes in your life for a season or a reason. So, it's like it does suck. It hurts almost like when you lose a family member too. It's like it's that grieving process. So it's like all
Absolutely.
these things. I was really being tested, and I was like, there's some points where I was just in my room for months at a time, like just depressed, and all these crazy things going on, and I was just tired of being depressed, and all these friends left, that contract canceled, I tore my Achilles tendon, like my niece passed away, like my dad passed away from cancer. It's like all these things, and it was just. But this time, because of what I did with learning to meditate and just doing everything that I started reading books like The Secret. I started reading like everything that Mr. Rogers wrote, books on like the Pope, Mother Teresa, just all the goodness that I could find in the world. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm gonna be even stronger, so I could do more good. And the more that this world seems to do these things to me, I need to understand, and that's something that I had to realize, that no matter what happens to me, as traumatic as it could happen, as messed up and as dark as it could be, and I've gone dark with this,
Yeah.
that nothing that happens to me in this life is technically a bad thing if I choose it not to be.
Say that again.
I could
Seriously.
like, even if like my daughters like were to pass away, because I took it there. I'm like, if I could take it to my daughter passing away in the most horrible way, and I was sitting
God
there, I'm
forbid,
like,
right?
what can I do? What would I do? I'm like, well, if it's a something that's violent, something that's this, something that, then I would spend the rest of my life helping other families, helping other women, helping other girls to never have to go through that again. So yeah, it sucks that she's gone. It sucks that my daughter went through that. But out of respect and love for her, because she is not here, and for all those other ones that are gone via suicide or whatever reason, I live my life to honor them because they don't get a chance to do it anymore. And out of respect to them, if you've ever lost somebody that you loved and cared about, if you're only sad for the 2 3 weeks leading up to the funeral or whatever, or afterwards, and then you go back to what you were doing, your negative habits, all these things,
Yeah.
then you're being disrespectful to that person that you were just honoring less than a few days ago, because they're no longer here, and
Yeah.
they want to see the best out of you, and they want to support you and love you. And it's like, I at least for myself, I can't give up. I can't give up for them. I can't give up for every person that sent me an email, that sent me a message. So in order for me to do that, I have to take care of myself. And a lot of people feel, especially if you have children, you have this, that you need to put everybody else first. I'm like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to
Yes,
be able to
you
take care of
can.
yourself to take care of others. And that's the
Yeah.
best way that you could do it. I can't take care of my kids if I'm completely depressed in the corner. I
Correct.
could try to fake it, but they're smart and they'll see
They
right
are.
through it.
They will feel it. Us
Like,
not
I
yet.
want to be the best dad that I can be, and I know that the only way that I can be is a game that I play with myself, like by myself. And it's like, okay, let's say that Mr. Rogers was living life through me in this body right now. How, like, it's almost like, what would Mr. Rogers do? So I get up in the morning before I even like walk outside. I'm like, how would Mr. Rogers greet his kids this morning? What would he do for them this morning? Will he cook them breakfast this morning? We talk about this, and then I do that. And then if I'm driving in traffic and somebody cuts me off, I'm like, okay, well, let's say Mr. Rogers is driving. Like, how, somebody cut him off. So every day I give myself little goals, because it's hard not to get upset, not to get angry.
Yeah.
So if I could, it's almost like fake it till you make it. I'm playing this game with myself, but everybody wins, because even if I can't reach 100% like of what he would have done, I did amazing things today because I
Yes.
was, it's like, but if it was just me, like I felt like, I'm not really gonna do it. I can't really do it. I don't know how to do it. But I've seen enough of him on television. I'm like, well, he would kind of do it like this. He would kind of do it
Yeah.
like this. And then with that beauty of it, I was like, being able to help others is my calling. And that's what allowed me to overcome like the struggles that I did with my trauma, with the pain and all that stuff. It gave me purpose because I don't want others to feel the same way as I did growing up. And if I could help children, if I could help adults, you know that they weren't broken, that there's nothing wrong with them for feeling a certain way or
Correct.
thinking a certain way. It's like you're perfectly valid to feel the way that you feel, and there's nothing wrong with you in that aspect. It's
Well,
like it's how we react to it. Yeah,
yes. I was
it's
going to say, you said something earlier, just as we were kind of going over the podcast that I wanted to bring in as you said that, is that you realize one of the most important things that you had to do for yourself was to take acceptance.
yeah,
You said earlier, like radical kindness, but there's also the radical acceptance
yeah,
of what you're going to choose and how you're going to choose to react that way. And some of us, you said you found somebody to role model after.
yeah,
You weren't sure. You couldn't place somebody like in your immediate circle, but you saw Mr. Rogers and you saw the values and you saw what he practiced and you hung on to that. And having a role model in that capacity and being able to wake up and be as mindful to take maybe, and you tell me, maybe take some of acceptance
yeah,
of, my mindset isn't quite going in this direction, but you know what? How would it go in this direction if I was going to model after
yeah.
Mr. Rogers?
And I had to understand it was something that I had to do. I wasn't great at keeping a journal, but for a while there I did, and it was on my phone, and it was before my daughter was even born. And I'd read it, and it was just the most like self-deprecating, like just
Mm,
evil, just journal. And I was like, and I read it. I'm like, I'm this, I'm that. So I'm like, I'm reinforcing these beliefs that were, put on me growing up by society, by my parents, by other people. And I believed it, and I started reinforcing it by, I was writing this journal and all this stuff. And at one point, I was like, I was, I'm learning all these things, but I don't have an actual teacher or guide. And I'm getting a lot into spirituality, into plant medicine. I was studying like, psilocybin and then ayahuasca ceremonies with shamans and like Peru and like all this stuff. Like I actually did all these things, learning about ego death, learning about, all these amazing things that are actually did help me, but one of the biggest things is that I had to come to the realization, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to take these steps to become the best person that I can be. I have to take this moment right now and just completely be honest with myself of who I am right now. Not
mm,
just the good, but the bad. That's my mistakes, the things that I've done. Like, be completely honest with myself and be like, this is who you are. Not in a negative
mm.
way, not in a like
No,
you've been this, you've been that. It's like, okay, this, I'm just
not
taking
the judgment
inventory.
stance, the
Yeah.
curious stance, and just
It's
being
like,
honest.
yeah, it's the inventory of like, this is what we got to work with.
Mm,
Have you, and it was like, okay, well, besides, being kind of selfish at times, being greedy, kind of being an ass, I'm not really a bad person. That's when you start realizing like, when you start caring about others, when you start, your life focuses around that. There's a lot of times where you feel like you're broken, like you're messed up, and it's like, if you were that bad of a person, you wouldn't be that empathetic towards others.
mm,
If you were that bad of a person that you trick yourself to believe that you are, you wouldn't worry about things like being there for others or how it affects others. Like that alone lets you know that you're a caring person. You might not be the most perfect person in the world. Like I have a gentleman that like he just found me on social media because he saw my art, and then I told him, if you ever need anything, let me know. And he did. One day he ended up calling me, and he jumped off the bandwagon, and he was really depressed. I'm like, I barely talked to the guy twice,
yeah.
but it was allowing him to. And he was like, and he's crying on the phone. He's drunk, and he's like, man, I messed up, and I'm trying to tell him like what happened, like, and he told me he fell off the bandwagon and all this stuff. He's like, you've been sober for this long, and I'm like, look, man, it's like you're not gonna be perfect. None of us are. It's like, but because he's telling me like all these things, all these bad things he's done, but he's like crying. He's like, I'm not a bad person. He's like, I just want to be able. I was like, I just feel hollow and alone and empty. And a lot of people do peg a person like that as a bad person, and that's what they believe. But
Yeah.
when you're going through this and struggling in it, I realized, I was like, look, man, I was like, and I had to tell him, I was like, we are we are bad people. We do bad things at times. We do negative things, but it's only truly within ourselves, knowing if we are honest with ourselves, like truthfully. But in order to get to that point, I had to sit there and read every page of the journal out loud in front of my wife,
Wow.
my current wife. And there's times where I was crying, I was screaming that I couldn't go on, and she kept pushing me like, keep reading it. Once I finished reading it, I burned it. I held on to that thing for 10 years, and I burnt it, and then I started a new one.
Mm,
And in the new one, it was different. It was what I wanted to do, my purpose in life, the talents that I do have, the gifts that I do have to be able to help others. And when you start changing the narrative in
mm,
your own head, that's when the story starts changing.
yeah.
When you start focusing, because you could focus on the negative all day, but there's still so much positive, so much things to be grateful and blessed. Like recently with my dad passing away last August, and all these things going on, and I was perfect at the point to become depressed again. I was like, if any other year,
Line
like
up.
this would have been it. Like this would have been like, okay, I'm checking out. Like, but the fact that I could sit there and sit in the back and just like think about these things, not hiding them, not avoiding them, but even
Good.
when I'm alone, writing them or speaking them out loud, and I just start crying and I empty everything out because I actually say it and I get it out of me and I put it out there in the world. And I was like, at the end of the day, it was like, I know that I am able to overcome the things that I couldn't in the past, because little by little I've been arming myself with
Yeah.
books on, it's like self-love and kindness towards other, because it's the thing was like, you could do the self-love, but at which is an amazing thing, and it's the thing that has to come first. But once you're able to do that for yourself, then you're able to find empathy and love towards others. And that's
Right.
where I kind of love that I'm at right now, where it's like I see the world for what it is, the politics and the anger and this and that. And every time I see a grown adult fighting or yelling or saying these racist or terrible things, I see them as they're scared
Yeah.
and they're hurt. Because I don't believe that there's really, there is, but not a lot of truly evil people in this world. Really don't believe that. I really do believe that most people at the end of the day are scared and
Yeah.
hurt and angry.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I mean, the saying is like, you, oh gosh, it just went out of my mind. Maybe you can help remind me. But it's like if you look for the evil, you're gonna find it. If you look for
Yeah,
the good, you're gonna find it, right? And so I would venture to say that part of Juan that was in that first journal was probably seeing all of that
yeah,
evil,
and
continuously sitting in that
that's all I
stuff.
saw.
And
Everything, but
now
I
this new
manifested it
journal
too.
part of you.
Yeah, it's like I manifested it too, because there's even when like I would have gigs that would come up or jobs that would come up, as a full time artist trying to take care of your family, I'd have these amazing gigs that'll come up and things that'll change my life forever, like 6 figure deals, and my mentality was like, well, what's the point? Every time I get to this opportunity, it gets taken away from me for
Yep.
some reason, and
You
it did
already ruined
every
it
single
before.
time. So I was
Yeah.
just like, so I'm already seeing that, so that's what I'm gonna get. And I could get all spiritual with it and like all hippie like I normally do now. But at the end of the day, it was like when I started, like especially now, I love shows like The Daily Show and all these funny shows that talk about the news. But the news is so scary right now with everything that's
Yeah.
going on. I was like, you know what? I can't do that. As much as I find those entertaining, I can't. So I literally turned it off. And just in the last 2 weeks that I haven't been in like what the world's going on it's important, but at the end of the day it just becomes too much media, too much news, too much, it's just too
Yes.
toxic.
Those boundaries are
Yeah,
so important to know about yourself of what capacity you can take in. Because again, you can't
there's
show
so
up for
much.
the people in front of you and you can't show up and make a bigger impact if you're sitting in all of what you don't have control over all the
Yeah,
time.
and I'm looking at Mr. Roger again. Every documentary that he's been in, I've looked at it and I'm like, if you see the way that he talks to kids or that talks to people, or just the way that he presents his life, he was never really focused on the outside world.
Mm.
It was what he knows that all these things are going on in the world, but he was focused on one-on-one talking to these kids, talking to these adults, and sharing that message of love. And
Yeah.
it was never like, I'm too focused on politics. The only time he really went up against Congress was when they were trying to defund PBS, which they're trying to do again. But it was like with him, he spoke not from a political stance. He spoke, he's like, I am here because I share the message of love and kindness with these children. And the guy that was in charge, who was a really hard like senator, his heart softened and he was like, you know what? You just got the money for PBS. Like you
Yeah.
single handedly won it. And it was like, to me, I started realizing it was like, I want to focus on the goodness of the world. The
Yeah.
more scarier it gets, the more I want to focus on love and being kind. And you get pushback. You definitely do. A lot of
Yeah.
people to this day don't believe people like Mr. Rogers were real. People that
Right.
that they were like they thought that he was like a sniper or in the military or all these stories about him. But in actuality, he like a lot of people and a lot of his friends were like, people just can't see that somebody like that actually exists, especially in a world like we live in today. But there
Right.
is, and I thought that there wasn't for a long time. And the more that I started going in this path, the more I started finding people that were on the same path as I was, and that was a beautiful thing. And one of the things that when we spoke via email, the messages you sent me, one of the things was talking about community when it talks about mental health. And I honestly felt like I could do without community for the longest time.
Yeah.
But even during my healing process, there was a time where I was just alone, and I'm like, how can I preach love in this thing that I'm trying to do if I don't talk to anybody?
Right.
And my healing, a lot of it comes from doing the work and getting it to people, and then all of a sudden those people reaching out to me or talking to me or having conversations with me, and then opening up that dialogue, that to me is success. That to me is a win. So it's like, because to get people to talk about their mental health to a stranger that they met 5 minutes ago, and all of a sudden they've opened up their whole like life story to me, I want them to know that if somebody were to do that, then they're going to have my undivided attention to help
Right.
them. Because to me it's like, I
It's
hooked
such
you in
honest.
with the art, but
Yes.
like now I got you. It's like, and it's
Yeah.
helping people bring down that guard, you
Right.
know
Well,
but
and
it takes talent to do that. You
it
can't just
does.
take down
And
a
you
guard.
said something really important and something that I remember reading about with Mr. Rogers, and something that I think is coming back to a lot of us
Mhm.
is we don't have a great capability of being multitaskers. And
Yeah,
for whatever reason, that's kind of where the world is right now, is go bigger, go faster, go stronger, doing
yeah,
all these things makes you more. But the power that Mr. Rogers had by being so present
yeah.
is the important part. And that's really something that I'm hearing as you're saying, like being able to talk one on one like this. And, yes, we're in a recording, but I've spoken to you one on one multiple times. Not one of us grabbed our cell phones and got distracted by something else. We were present in our conversation, which allowed our conversation to blossom
Yeah.
and continue to allow connections to happen and support to happen. Or you're a freaking huge cheerleader of you. And
Mhm.
like it's really being present that allows oftentimes people to be vulnerable in that space because they're safe. They don't, you've created a space without that judgment. And so, kind of to go back and kind of wrap up a lot of what was said today, that I just want to revisit is it is so important to be able to share when you're not feeling okay.
uh,
And there are people, and finding your community of people is not easy. And oftentimes
no.
we want to do it alone, but it is important. And when you find those people to start being honest and vulnerable with, the work starts to happen. But really, you said something earlier. You said, I was faking it till I make it. But I would even say that that's a little bit of BS, because, bro, you are doing the work until your mind and your
Yeah,
patterns are actually following through, right? Those weren't patterns that were
yeah,
gifted to you. These weren't values that you saw in a lot of people around you, but you found somebody that aligned with what was important to you. And every day you're making an active decision to do that work until every pattern is starting to follow through. And that's
Yeah.
what is aligning with your values and who you are, helping you. Not only did you do your self love, you went and did some self care, you lost the weight, you felt better about yourself, you put your physical and mental health at first, at the forefront. And then you were able to show up for yourself in a therapy capacity, which let me say, let's go back to that, is that there are therapists out there that when you go to them with suicidal thoughts, know how to help you.
Yeah.
And it's the therapists that are comfortable with suicide prevention and that are comfortable having suicidal conversations with you
Mm.
because you can get over that mountain. And you know what? Sometimes you can't, but your therapist, when you find the right one, your therapist will walk you through how to get the right help and keep you safe until those thoughts are ready to start to rework. And that, I mean, you took yourself through that. I mean, it took you until what? You said 23 years old to start to really like
Yeah.
scratch the surface of this
To
stuff.
even acknowledge it, like that it was
Yes.
there, and then after that, it becomes an uphill battle with everybody telling you that it's not, that it's just you, that is you're just being this way or that way. But like you said, it was like it's so amazing with again that quote. It's like everything that's mentionable is manageable.
Yeah.
It ties it all in perfectly. Like if you're able to have those conversations, like you said, with the therapist there, feel comfortable having the conversation, that's a huge win in itself.
Yeah.
Because like the more that you're talking about it, the less that you're actually thinking of doing it with
Yeah.
somebody else. And then to me, it was being able to take that moment, and honestly, even before everything else, before I really decided to focus on the mental health and the physical health. um, I had to learn one thing, and that was like I had to learn to love myself. And
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing, because I can't do any of this if I don't have love for myself. I can't love others if I don't have love for myself. So it was at the time I didn't even like myself.
Yeah.
So I started with, it's like, okay, what do you like? Like I love documentaries, I love books, I love reading, I love learning. So it was like, okay, let's start with the, and it just started. It was like, look, you're gonna start a brand. Just how would some, and it was everything that I did led to the next book, or led to the next documentary, or led to the next whatever it was that
To
educated me on becoming.
start
Yeah.
somewhere, right?
And I was so tired because I've gone through, I mean, even at that age, I was like, I'm not that old, but like at that time, I've gone through so much stuff in my life that I'm like, I've done the angry thing. I've done the hateful thing. I've done the, oh, poor it's me thing. I've done the not doing nothing and just sitting in depression phase. Like I've done all of them, and I'm sick and tired of them. And that's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for broke, and I'm going to go for superhero status. And I'm just, because why not?
What do you
It's
have
like,
to
what's going to
lose,
happen?
right? You've tried a ton of other things. And oftentimes with a mental health journey, especially when somebody who struggles with clinical depression, severe anxiety, autism on any spectrum. I mean, we can go on a list of mental health and mental illness, but wherever you stand on that, it really is about just starting somewhere,
Yeah. It's just
right?
making the choice, the obvious
Yes,
choice
and
too.
and
And know that if you
absolutely.
mess up, if you make a mistake, it's not like, one of those things where it's like, oh, I made a mistake, I messed up, I can't do this, and you stop. It's like, no, man, it's like it's the same thing with meditation. Just all you got to do is from that moment, just you go forward.
Right.
From that very moment, from this second right now, I could choose where to go forward. I came up with a weird concept, and like I actually thought about it. I was like, okay, if this became like a mental health book, or like a self help book, I could be a billionaire. And I came up with this easy concept,
It's going
and
to be copyrighted. Nobody can take it.
yeah, even if you can't, I was like, here's the thing, like use it, because, and I've sent it to people, I've sent it to PhDs, and I'm like, here's the thing, I'm like, tell me it doesn't work, and they looked at it and they can't find a flaw in it. And to me, it's as simple as the game. I think it was, what's it called? When they're like, you write all these squares like on the floor, like one, two, hopscotch, and then you throw the
Okay.
thing. Okay, so let's look at a hopscotch. It's like from 1 to 10, let's say.
Yeah.
And I tell people, and when I talk to kids, when I talk to like, because I am trained as a art therapy counselor, so I sometimes I take on people, and I talk to parents or their kids, and I thought the idea was like, so I was like, okay, imagine your fantasy just life, like you are like with me. It's like I want to be, the Mr. Rogers and Hello Kitty and Bob Ross all put together, and like that's what I want to do for a living,
Yes, I
right? And
see
I'm
it.
gonna
Yeah.
like living in San Diego, living in San Diego because that's my hometown, and I have this, that, the house. Like I just imagine it, go for
Big
broke,
dreams. Yeah.
and imagine that as that 10 spot at the very end. So we're like, okay, cool. So if you could play the like, let's say the movie of your life, and be like, that's the end goal. All right, go
Yeah.
to the end goal. You won. You got the house. You got everything. You're blah blah blah. Cool. What happened right before that to get you
Yeah.
there? Cool. What happened right before that to get you there? And if you could imagine it so well, you could go back to the first step, and all you got to do is take that first step, and you just laid out your entire plan.
Yeah.
And let's say something happens in life where you're like a tragedy or something happens and you're following the steps. So the first step would be like with me, like, okay, get in, submit work and try to get into like a national gallery.
Yeah.
And so I start doing
Which
that.
you
That's the first
did.
step. And I
That
did. It's like,
that
so I
takes.
start doing that first step and it was like, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And eventually it happens. So it's like, cool, first step. Next
Yeah.
step, trying to do work so I was like, then I dig to next step because I already
Yeah.
played out the entire movie of my life and I know how it
Right.
ends. So then I'm like, all right,
I've
let's say
just got
tragedy
to work
happened. Yeah,
backwards
you just
and
have to work
start
backwards, then
working.
forward.
And then
Yeah,
I got to plan it out backwards and then start to work
yes.
forward.
And if something happens, like something, because something happens in
Life's going
life.
to happen.
So what would you do? I'm like, so take a step to the right, and now start writing the story again. So I was so now you're like, okay, so I was on the path and I'm doing it, and I was gonna go do this, but then this happened. Okay, so let's say you write the story. So how would you overcome it? Da-da-da. So then you
Yeah.
write that story out, and like, cool. Now you shift and you go in that direction, and then something happens. Cool. Then shift and go in that direction. But if you're able to do that, you have a purpose in life and a mission. And
Yes.
that's one of the biggest things that like I think would help people that are struggling with
100%.
trauma and all this pain. It's like what can you do with this pain, with this trauma, with all the things? Flip it. Because
Find
all
that
it is
purpose.
energy.
Yes.
It's turn negative energy into energy is just energy. It's the
Yeah.
way that you see it. So flip it. I took all that pain and all that hurt, and I'm like, I see kids crying. I've been that moment with the gun in my head, and I know. So I'm gonna take that and be like, how can I do it so others don't feel that way? And just I realized that the only way that I could ever do this is just be as completely and brutally honest as I can. And there's going to be people that are not going to like it at the moment, but there's going to be so many people that will. And to me,
Yeah.
if it only helps one person, then that's all that really matters. And
Yeah.
luckily, I'm grateful. And I was telling my wife this morning because I ended up like I wake up to messages, and I was going to show you this. Just read it for you real quick.
Yeah.
And I get this message and I don't know this person and it's on Instagram and it said, "Hi, I just want to let you know that your book I'm Not Okay Today has been a hit with my foster kids 6 and 4. My
Mm.
6-year-old has opened up so much since reading it 2 days ago and he has not expressed himself in a long time from what the past foster mom and therapist say. I just want to say thank you for writing it." I wake up to those messages and I'm just like I wake up crying, but not for a different reason.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Those have to be some happy
and
tears that you were just able to impact that
like I can't
children's direction.
if ever I'm struggling with like man like that imposter syndrome or like I'm fake or I'm not doing this, like I screenshot those and I keep them not to like be like, oh, I'm
Yes.
this. It's more of like, dude, you are doing something.
Yes.
And I have to hear that for myself,
We all
'cause
do.
I mean,
Yeah,
I have
absolutely. It's so
thousands of
important.
yeah, I have thousands of fans on social media, which to me I'm like it's social media, but at the end of the day, there's people behind those messages that
Yeah.
are telling me these things, and I'm like, it's very hard for anybody to message somebody they don't know or say thank you for something like this to somebody they don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's hard for one person to do it. So if I'm getting at least 10 of those messages a week, there's so many
Win.
people that don't message that want to message, and there's so many people that would like to, but they're too scared. But I'm like, that should let me know that at least I'm on the right path.
You're absolutely on the right path. Yes. And it's you coming in, sharing your story today that I mean, you and I both said it and you said it just a moment ago, is it's like if we reach one person, we've already reached our purpose.
Yeah.
And that would be enough to have that fulfillment if this discussion helped you to realize that you just got to be honest with yourself or you got to find the right therapist, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to shift therapists. It's okay if it's not working for you, but there are people out there that are going to align with the path that you want to be on. And
Yeah.
and that really is the purpose of both of our work that we're
Yeah.
doing. And so I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful that
Oh,
you get
thank
to
you.
have those messages, because I know that's just gonna, continue to propel you into, the bonus that you just shared with us of being able to get to that 10th square eventually, because you're going to continue to do that work, continue to not fake it till you make it, but do the work as you continue to progress. And just wrapping this up, I just want to say thank you so
No, thank
much
you.
for sharing it today, sharing all this information today
Of
with
course.
us. And I will make sure to include your website. I mean, if you have not checked out Juan's
Mm,
artwork, you're
thank
missing
you.
out. And for those with kids, a lot of those books really do resonate with the kiddos. I have them in my offices. Parents will grab them, go get them for the kids, and they really do help make a big impact, because even as adults, many of us have not been given the tools to adequately share
Yeah.
with our kids our emotions. And sometimes through art is a beautiful therapeutic intervention that can help open up that gateway to communication. So thank you for creating that. And he posts his events on his Instagram. I
Yes.
don't think you're as loud, but that Instagram algorithm is not very helpful,
Yeah.
because it is so fun to see you out of character, in character. I mean, if you guys see one out there, he might be in his character suit. So it's super cool. And I mean, it's really just,
Honestly, it makes me happy because, like, and especially when I wear the bunny suit, my daughter wears it most of the time, but when I wear it, it's like me and her talk about it. It was the amount of joy and happiness you see not only in like kids' face, but adults' faces. It's like it just makes us happy. And I'm like, how do we not want to all live in a world like that?
right.
Like, just that letting go of that thing that allows us not to be that inner child. And that's why I really push for our inner child to come out and play a lot more. It's
Yeah,
definitely needed. And I believe that that's what truly can heal ourselves and our past trauma, is allowing that inner child to come out. Because,
absolutely.
like I said, it was like I did say that a lot. I say it mostly as a joke to myself, the whole fake it till you make it thing. And I was like, yeah, but I've been faking it for so long that I've been making it for a while now. Like it's no longer like I'm forcing myself to do these things. It's like they just naturally happen. But in the beginning, it wasn't, because I honestly felt when I first thought about being this, like my own version of Mr. Rogers, like the thought came into my head. I was like, we need another Mr. Rogers in this world. And I was like, but it can't be you, because look at you. And I was like, I was like, look at the way you're, look how messed up that you are in your head and everything. And after a while, like I was like, either you put up or you shut up. Either you have a resolution to the problem, or you don't complain about it. So I decided that I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna claim it, and nobody can tell me no. And move, just real quick. It was one time I bought a red cardigan sweater because I
Mm.
thought maybe one day I could wear it. And during that time, Mr. Rogers' wife passed away, and I think I posted the picture of the sweater, and I said, you know what? It's like I don't think I deserve to wear the sweater because Mr. Rogers passed away, his wife Joanna passed away, so like I just don't feel that I have the right to wear something like this. The next morning, I wake up to a tweet from Angela Santamero, which is the creator of Blue's Clues and Daniel Tiger, and worked right hand side to Mr. Rogers, and she said, "With the work that you're doing, you're helping so many. You've earned the right to wear the sweater." And I just started crying again. So it's like,
Oh,
it's
that
the
gives me the chills. Yeah.
no matter how messed up you think that you are, no matter how broken you think that you are, or that you're not a good person or a good leader or a good teacher or a good whatever, just know that there's nothing wrong with you, and you are exactly who needs to be you, because there's
Yes.
nobody else that could play that role of you.
And
And
if
at the
you want to
end of
be better,
the-
give
yeah,
yourself
it's in
full
you.
permission to do it.
It's all within you. It's all within us.
Yes.
It's like I remember watching movies and like all these things, are like all these people go back to school and talk to these kids, and like, if I can do it, you can do it. And I always felt it was kind of cheesy, but in reality, it was like at the end of the day, I was like, man, I'm like, I see how people, I still see me as the old me, even though like I know I've changed. But there's so many people, like when I see you and I'm talking to you, or when I'm talking to somebody, and I get into my weird zone where I'm just in the zone, it doesn't face it doesn't like get past me that the look that you give me, that people give me, that other people are this very similar look of people when they were talking to Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, like I want to cry right now because my biggest goal was to create that vibe
Yeah.
about myself so others could feel it,
Yeah. And you're
because you
creating.
can't fake it. You can't fake that.
No.
A child could see right through that.
Yep.
And if I have a room of children all around me and like talking to me, I'm like, I can't fake that.
Yeah.
So again, that's like this broken kid, this messed up kid, this kid that was a gang member, was Tiger, was doing all these things, is now doing this because I chose to.
And thank
Because I said
you
nobody's gonna
for
stop me.
choosing to do that.
It's like nobody's
Be-
gonna stop me from doing this. And
yeah.
it's like, and it makes me happy. And I see my kids, and I have a 17-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I've never dealt with any attitude whatsoever from these teenage kids. And
Oh,
they're and like
congratulations.
every day they're like, "Daddy, we love you. Daddy, thank you for
Oh,
everything. Daddy, for like," they open up about their feelings there, and I'm just like, it's almost like a TV show,
yeah.
like how I live, and I'm just like, I sit in the back and I'm just thankful for it. I'm like,
Yeah.
this didn't happen. Like I see them and I'm like, they're amazing kids, and like they do, and everybody's like, and my dad before he passed away told me, he was like, they're that way because of you,
Mm,
like not because of me. He wasn't there, my parents were there. It was like, it was those things that I was lacking in my life, that I would see shows like Family Matters, for House, and all these things of how a dad should be, and I just mimicked that,
yeah.
because I didn't have it. So now it's like, the last thing I want to say is that it's like, if you feel like that, you are too broken or too far gone to make a difference. I was like, man, like you're exactly who is there to make a difference. You know,
Perfect.
you're exactly who needs to do this, because it was really really hard for people to, you know, connect with somebody that they feel is almost saint like Mr. Rogers was, even his own
Yeah.
kids. It's hard to be the kid of somebody who's like almost the second coming of Christ. But we don't have to be that way. We
Yeah.
just have to like look within ourselves and realize that our trauma may have like put us in a certain direction, but it doesn't have to shape who we become.
Right. Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
and you're walking truth of really putting that effort forward to make that change for yourself, trickles down into your kids, into your relationships, and then you're able to make that even bigger impact. So thank you for the work that
thank
you
you. No, and
continue to
thank you for the
do.
work that you do, because I mean, without you, none of this would be happening right now. So it's like,
Yeah. Well,
we just got to keep reaching. We just got to keep
just
doing what
keep
we're doing.
reaching. Yeah. And so I will make sure to tag your stuff in,
Please.
all of the show notes so you guys know exactly where to find Juan and his artwork and the events that he's doing. And so many of the things that you mentioned today is the purpose and the drive behind Mental Summit, because although I'm a clinical therapist, I know the importance of education and being able to name it to tame it is so hard to do by yourself. And that is the core of Mental Summit, and the reason that I'm putting so much effort into a second business
Yeah.
is to be able to have a platform and a community for those that don't quite know or have lost themselves and not sure how to get back on the path that you've been talking about today. And you hit on so many important things today for so many individuals, just to kind of like go back through, is that honesty with yourself, being able to learn that self-love and loving yourself first, is so important if you want to start making that change and shift. And don't try to do it alone, because it's
Yeah.
hard for us
I did
to
it
really
alone,
face it.
and eventually, it was just, you're running around in circles. You are learning a lot, but at the end of the day, the connection that we have with other people is the reason why we even continue to do this. Because at the end of the day, if we were alone, none of this would be issues. None of you
Right.
would struggle. But it's learning that you're not alone, and there's a lot of people that feel the same way that you do, feel as lost as you do, as scared as you do, and
Yeah.
allowing yourself to connect with those people allows you to have more grace towards the rest of the world, because you realize that it's like we're all struggling through
We're
something.
all
We're all
going through
going through something.
something.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, it could be as cheesy as, like quotes and, sayings, but it's very simple. The Beatles said it, all you need is love. You know,
Mm.
Mr. Rogers said it too. He was like, everything in the world is surrounded by love or lack of it.
Yeah.
Because if you love your fellow neighbor, you don't want them to be poor or homeless or whatever. You know, it's like if you lack love, then you don't care about other people. So at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, all you do need is love, you know, for each other
Yeah.
and for yourselves.
So I hope that this episode resonated with you, and I hope those that are listening, if there's anything to move forward through today, is give yourself the love, give those around you the love, and if you feel for some reason that you're not ready for this episode to resonate with you, please share with those that may need it, and know that you're not alone on the journey. Thank you again, Juan. It was good to
No,
see
thank you.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Meg.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you gained what you needed to hear today. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about the strength of moving forward. If today's episode resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone you love, because when we share with love, we help to break the stigma together. If you want to connect with me and learn more about what we're doing over at Mental Summit to break these stigmas, please connect with me over at mymentalsummit.com. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep going together, and remember, you're not alone in this.